ready?
On the way in, Bill told me there was no moderator, and I was like, we're just going to riff for 45 minutes.
We were downstairs. Zach's
I think
like,
we can handle it, but I was fucking nervous.
Zach's like, who's the moderator? I'm like, I got bad news, dude. But we got.
The good news is we're so self-interested in ourselves. We can probably do it.
Yeah. I'm going straight this way.
Go straight, because you don't want to diss these people.
All right, cool. We're gonna. I think you guys tell me. I think you're supposed to talk about working with your friends a little bit. I think that's what this is about. I hope.
Our
careers,
specific collaboration.
careers working together.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. All right. I'll start by telling you guys a story. It's a true story. And now, anybody that went to the last panel, you know, I really believe. I don't care if it's entertainment. Or whatever you're doing, if you have the opportunity to work with people you love or friends, especially right now, do it. You know, it makes it so much more fun. You can tell with our show that we all desperately try to work with each other over and over just so we can hang out, spend time together. We don't have a huge need to come to festivals. We love coming to A because of you, and B because we like spending time with each other, you know? It's true. All right, so love this guy.
Thank you guys for giving us an excuse to all get together
and get really drunk.
And get hammered. Thank you.
So, on our career together, I will say, and then I'll ask Zach some questions. I'll be the moderator.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So, because we have a journey, and then we're going to keep it going, too. We'll tell you some other stuff. But
Bill
Zach
show runs everything. We had a text chain coming here, and I'm like, I found a really good place to go to dinner. He's like, I don't want to go there. I'm like, my friend is from Atlanta, Austin, excuse me. He knows all the great restaurants. He goes, no, I'm gonna have a look where we're gonna eat. And I'm like, can you not show run dinner? Let me plan dinner.
I'm gonna let Zach tell our first working together story, and then we'll go back to Scrubs and it makes me look bad, and I want you all to know that I come back from this story. Okay? So Zach,
and it's 100% true.
The first year.
You're gonna think I'm exaggerating, but
the first year of Scrubs, and this is part of my life. Zach came up to me and he said, hey, it would mean a lot to me if you would read this screenplay I wrote. It was Garden State, by the way. And he, and we're going to do it with Garden State, though. Do it with that. And then he handed it to me and he said, of course I'd read it. Go ahead.
Well, you're conflating two
different. With a different story.
Sorry, all right, we're nervous. He's conflating two different stories. What happened was,
I know. I made it Garden State, so that was a better story.
He's show running my answer to the fucking question. Okay, you might have made it a better story because it makes you look like one step less of a douche at the time. I had the chutzpah, for those of you who don't know what that means, the balls, the huevos, the moxie, to first year of Scrubs write a Scrubs spec script. For those who don't know what that is, it's you're not a writer on the show and you wrote a full episode because you thought you could write in the tone of the writer's room. And I just because I aspired to be a writer. This is before Garden State, and Bill was a hero. He's always been a mentor to me since I met him in 2000. And I thought, this is so brave, and the last thing a showrunner wants is his star coming up to me going, I wrote an episode. But he was very nice at the time, and he said, oh, great, man, yeah, I will read this. The next day, a PA came to my dressing room, and the script I had given Bill, literally across, you're gonna think I'm exaggerating, it had a tire mark across the title page. And he said, I don't know, this has your name on it, so I assumed it was yours. But I found it in the parking lot.
It's fine.
I found it in the parking lot, and you guys, I swear to God, it's not an exaggeration. There was a tire mark across the title page.
Look,
Bill, your turn.
I put it on the roof of my car to go home. I drove away, and then everybody leaving work that day drove over. By the way, which is a metaphor for what it's like to be a writer, just so you know, right? So that was the start of our.
That was the beginning of
of our workers.
Of our beyond just showrunner actor collaboration.
Look, I'll tell you, and then I'll ask Zach some questions. The thing that changed our dynamic working together was, when I hired Zach, he was a waiter. I called him when he got the part. You can tell them. Is that an okay story to tell when you called the manager of the restaurant?
Yeah.
Go. You go.
I auditioned for Scrubs 6 times, and the final time was a network test, and they've changed it now and they do it in a more slightly more humane way. But it used to be pretend just this middle section here. Picture a room that size with almost this same amount of people in it, but pushed back against someone's desk. It was someone's office.
Yeah.
And you would have to. It's like the Olympics. You either nail it in that room, or all your preparation is worthless. And I got it. So I think I did well. I put my Motorola StarTech, for those of you old enough to remember the Motorola StarTech, I put it on the passenger seat of my Nissan 240 SX. And I was driving home, and Bill called me, and he told me I got the part, and my life was changed instantly. I knew it, because even if the show didn't go as the pilot, I clearly I didn't have to wait tables for a long time, just from making my first real check as an actor. And I called my mom, I called my dad, and I called the manager of the restaurant where I worked. And she was a fellow actor, and I go, I got the pilot. And she was freaking out. She was, but you're gonna work tonight, right? And I was like, I still have to work. She goes, of course, babe. You can't let me down. We're swamped tonight. You have to work. And I was like, oh, I'll work tonight. And I just got so hammered, and I was the worst waiter. And then people were like yelling at me. I was like, you calm down over there.
Didn't you base that restaurant?
Yes, for those of you who know Garden State, it was literally a French Vietnamese restaurant, I had to wear a tunic, and the only thing I added was the eye makeup and the earpiece, but everything else it was a very fancy restaurant in Beverly Hills, and the manager, not this nice woman, the owner actually, the meaner guy, would for some bizarre reason back in the day, people trying to get waiting jobs would give their headshot. They were all actors, but they would give their headshot, which was so weird. Like they're probably more interested in your waiting tables experience. But anyway, so he would hold up the headshots and be like, "If you're late again, I'm going to give your job to this guy." So I put all of that, and then people were like so snooty. We didn't have bread. I don't know much about, I know a little bit about French Vietnamese cuisine from working there, but one thing I can tell you is we didn't serve bread. And this made people livid because they would ask for bread, and I would say, I don't know what to tell you. We don't. I'm assuming that when the French colonized Vietnam, they didn't bring bread. That's all I can guess. That's all I can surmise from my tunic. And they would get mad and order lots of sugar, Red Bull vodkas, and so I put that in the movie, yeah.
Yeah, so the start of our actual working relationship was, I can't remember, did Garden State come first, or you direct an episode of Scrubs first?
No, you didn't let me until Garden State was just a very expensive way to audition to direct Scrubs.
So, here's the worst part of it, all right? So, I want to tell you guys that, this is a nice end to the story. So, I had, Zach come and direct the show, and not a lot of people know, but Zach went to film school to be a director. He's incredibly accomplished. Not only has he done his own films, go see Going in Style if you haven't seen it. It's a fantastic kind of studio movie. He's got a great movie coming out that he directed with Florence Pugh and Morgan Freeman. I've seen it. It's really, really, really good. Zach, the first time Zach directed, he's such a skilled director with moving the camera and visuals and stuff. The story makes me mad just even telling it. That after the first 5 days, my wife, who plays Jordan on the show, my wife's Krista Miller, she came and she's like, I gotta tell you, man, there's so many great directors on this show, but when Zach's there, it's like having this amazing feature director. He's by far the most talented, amazing visual director style. By the way, and what I'm keeping toward the end of the story, by that time I had directed like 10 episodes. I'm like, what? And then from that moment on, Zach directed all the big episodes of Scrubs. and we started a work relationship together that I send him my pilot scripts. He's nice enough to, you even let me work on Garden State a little back in the day.
A lot. In fact, here's a little funny, not funny, well, maybe it's funny. It was an anecdote from Garden State. I cut Garden State in the living room of my house. And, you know, Bill, he's been a mentor to me since day one and taught me so much, not just about writing, but about navigating the industry. Bill's the most savvy person I know about, you know, Hollywood is so much the creative side, but then navigating the business side. And there's genius writers that just don't know how to navigate the business side at all. And there's very savvy business people who can't write at all. And Bill is the best at both. And he's taught me so much about navigating that world. And I always go to him like, what do I do in this situation? How should I handle this? He came to see a very early cut of Garden State. Garden State used to have a reveal at the end of the movie that was so fucked up and twisted and dark that it hijacked the whole love story. And Bill came and he watched the movie and he said, all right, I'm going to tell you something that's going to be hard for you to digest. That second to last scene is the most powerful and intense and moving and dramatic scene in the movie. It will never be in the movie. You can't see it right now, and you're probably in your head mad at me. But eventually you're going to realize that you have to remove that scene from the movie. And he was right. Even in testing it through test audiences, we realized that putting a whole little dramatic reveal at the end of the movie was hijacking what the movie had truly become, which was a love story. But he could see it because Bill is so, as many skills as he's great at, he's so great in the edit room. We actually, yeah, we can tell the story about the X too during this. But so anyway, I guess I'm rambling. But he was so many things. Bill's the first person I show anything I work on without him because I trust his opinion the most.
And, you know, that type of work relationship, you know, when you have someone around that you can trust to tell you that something sucks or it's not your best, or it needs to be better, or the amount of times that we've both done for each other, you know, the painful thing of saying like, oh, that actor or actress doesn't work, or oh, this scene doesn't work. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard. I mean, you don't want, for those of you pursuing this or in whatever capacity is in your careers, you don't want yes men. It's the most useless thing in the world, in any field. And sometimes that's hard. You need the tough love of like, he might be pissed at me. You know, there were times where I would cut an episode of Scrubs, because when you're directing an episode, you get to do a first pass, and then of course you hand it off to the showrunner and they do a final pass. And Bill would come in and he would be like, no. And I would like, you know, let's say I left the camera rolling and didn't cut to a close-up at a point where you normally would. And he'd be like, no, we're not going to do that. And I'd be like, just please think about it. And he'd be like, no, we're not doing that. There's no way we're doing that. And then the next day, he was like, I thought about it. We could do it. It's good. Hey, the best thing was, though, this mofo, he would go, sometimes I would love something in the show, and like a joke that hadn't been written. It was like someone's weird, trippy improv, like a stoner joke kind of thing. And I'd show him the cut, and it was new to him because he wasn't on set when whoever improv'd the line or something. And we had all cracked up on set, and he'd go, I'm not putting that in the show. And I'd be like, really? The whole crew cracked up on set, dude. It's so funny. He goes, no. I showed that to Krista at home, and she didn't even understand what the hell it meant. And I was like, oh, okay, well, okay, fuck it. And then I ran into Krista. I go, you didn't think that was funny? She goes, you think that I watch rough cuts of Scrubs?
I was just trying to get him to leave, man. That's my fault. Come on. And look, since then, one of the things that Zach and I try to do is find excuses to work together because we get each other's sensibilities. And this is nerdy, but we've been talking about this book we read. It's about this guy Mike Nichols, you know. TV's Mike Nichols.
TV's Mike Nichols found a book that you should all read.
I'm gonna get real about it. One of the cool things in there is time and time again.
We've sold so many copies of this
Yeah,
book today.
he's died, so I can say that you and I were close with him now if we want to.
That wasn't in the book.
But time and time again, he returned to working with his friends and to working with people that understood him and that he understood them and that you would want to spend time with him anyways. It's kind of a theme of everything that we do. Zach directed the second ever episode of Ted Lasso. He would have, he was great. He would have done the first one if he was able to. We were just over in London. And I'm doing this new show with Harrison Ford and Jason Segel and Zach's, I think you're coming back to LA to direct that in a couple weeks.
In a couple weeks, I'm going to direct Harrison Ford, and I'm really the main reason I'm doing it is for the stills of me looking like I'm directing Harrison Ford. I'll do anything Bill ever wants, but when he told me that Harrison Ford was the co-star, I was like, think of the stills you're going to have for your wall.
By the way, I got a couple of real questions before we see if anybody here has any questions. We'll answer, trivia shit, work shit, whatever you guys want. I've been thinking about this a lot because, the tricky stuff for Zach and me to work together is we're both still kind of ambitious and doing our own thing. And the nicest thing it's not nice, it's just full of admiration. Zach doesn't need me in any shape, way, or form. Anytime he lets me work on his stuff, he's doing it out of friendship. He's so talented. He's one of those guys that's really annoying because he's a really good actor, but he can also write, he can also direct. It's maddening. But I will defeat him. No,
I think you're doing pretty well, buddy.
By the way, there is an air of every time we help each other, there's a little element of competition to it, like the same way it bothers me when Zach directs my stuff, and it's so good. If he ever gives me, I work harder when Zach gives me a script on trying to come up with 4 or 5 jokes that I know will be in the trailer, because it'll bother him that they pick.
Oh, it is. I'll give him my script. I gave him a script. My new film is called The Good Person, and it stars Morgan Freeman and Florence Pugh and Molly Shannon, and it's a tragedy tragedy with comedy, believe it or not. That's kind of our favorite genre. But it goes to a pretty dark place. I've had a lot of grief I've dealt with a lot of grief in the last 3 or 4 years of my life. I lost a lot of close people to me. And was born out of that. Anyway, in the spirit of what Bill and I like the most, you can't just give people grief and sadness for 2 hours. It's untenable. You have to give them release laughs, and that's the kind of thing we love to do. And so there's a lot of laughs in the movie, and there were, and then of course Bill filled the script with extra jokes. And one of them we gave to Morgan Freeman, and it's one of the biggest laughs in the movie. And we tested the audience. We tested from an audience, and the line he wrote for Morgan gets this giant laugh. And I just look over to my editor and I'm like, that fucking Bill Lawrence. He's got like 4 lines in the movie, and they're all very funny. And
worked harder on anything I've worked on. Just because I knew it would bother him. So a real question, because I've been thinking about this, because you talk about, hey, you guys want to do a Scrubs reboot? By the way, the funny thing about this festival, my phone blew up. There's now 9,000 articles.
Oh
my God, it's everywhere, and I love it. I love it. Like Bill says, but Donald Faison.
But Donald Faison says it should be better as a movie.
We were skimming the trades before we walked in here. And it's like Scrubs cast announced reunion show at the South by Southwest. This is how you guys should know. You now see firsthand how the internet works. You were there, and we said one day maybe it would be something like this. It now says it's happening in every trade. But what I liked is, but Donald Faison opined that it should likely be a movie.
By the way, Donald would do it if it was a radio play. He's in.
Which is not a bad idea.
So my question, knowing all the different stuff that we've worked on together, I've been thinking about this a lot. What's a thing that you and I haven't done together that would be cool to do? Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. I just miss. This is going to sound sentimental, but I feel this. I have to rephrase this because I'm already embarrassed about how it's going to come out. You have so many other children, babies in your life. You've got your Jason Segels and your Vince Vaughns, and your Jason Sudeikis's. I want you all back to myself. No, I would love to do a show again where I act and direct like Scrubs with you, and you guys can announce that in the trades.
Do you ever want to do a play?
I would love to do a play. I'll do anything with you. I think you're the most talented person I know.
Oh, it's too
And
nice.
I really, the thing is, I never made it as far as a network test, which is the final stage in audition in my acting career until this, because I found a lot of what I was getting sent not funny. Really, truly, there's some actors out there who can sell anything, and kudos to them. They can turn anything into something. I wouldn't get a lot of callbacks because I just didn't find the shit I was reading very funny. And when I read the Scrubs pilot, I laughed so hard. I thought, wow, me and this guy, whoever wrote this, we have the same sense of humor. This is very funny to me. And of course, as you know, I like comedy that also has heart, as does he. And so that's how I got it. So it's hard to find someone that we have such the same sensibility. So the answer to your question is, I would love to do any genre, but you and I together. My ET story, ET.
By the way, I love that story because in that story, Zach told,
E.T.
E.T. is just a dude living in his apartment.
I must confess to you, I couldn't fall asleep last night, and I was like, well, they're definitely going to ask us about a reboot, and so just lying, staring at the ceiling, I came up with an analogy involving ET.
I just like that.
And in the
E.T.
story,
is,
ET, Bill said, what if he had a cigarette? He's sitting at home. ET is sitting at home going, I don't know when I'm going to work again. I mean, who knew this fucking thing would blow up like this? I really fucking love this. I don't think I'm gonna. What else is gonna happen in
If
my
I play
career?
E.T. one more time, it's all I'm going to play.
I love that ET in the analogy. ET is very picky about what he's gonna do next. It feels like ET would do the ET sequel even without Spielberg. Because he's not gonna have many
There's
options.
not a lot of shit for him to do. I love the fantasy of doing a play with somebody. I just want to, it's really interesting because I haven't figured it out yet. I'd love to work with all these people again together. And we had the conversation on our end of the table last night, me and Neil Flynn, of whether it has to be Scrubs or if we already did Scrubs, if we try to do something else, would it be too weird for everybody?
Do it. Do it.
It's like think of the Guffman. What is the Guffman posse? The Christopher Guest sort of style, where we could do that kind of thing.
Or play or
But nobody wants to see that. They want to see. I don't know.
They want to see Eagle over and over.
Yeah, they want to see. They just want to see me ride Donald. I'm walking down the street in New York, and people just yell "Eagle" at me. I was once in Israel on a kibbutz. I swear to God, I was taking a tour of a kibbutz in Israel, and I see this beautiful Israeli woman walking towards me in the distance, and she's sort of squinting. And it's like one of those Scrubs, beautiful person entrances with the kind of wind kind of blows her kibbutzy hair. And she's squinting, and she comes towards me, and she goes, "Eagle?" It's very bizarre in the middle of nowhere in Israel how far the show has traveled.
So look, if anybody has any questions, it'll help us tell stories. We'll go around. But the one thing I really want to reiterate is the thank you that we always do. The fact that this got thrown together and that you all are here is crazy.
Thank you.
And Zach and I will work together forever. A lot of people put on false fronts. It's not bad just because shows come and go. Every person that you guys saw today from Scrubs, we all still hang out. My first call was to Krista, wanting to know, because she couldn't come, wanting to know how it went. Rob Maschio immediately texted me going, "I heard you mention my name." It's cool. We are.
I'm surprised he's not here.
Well, he might be.
Yeah.
Man, just to circle it back, work with your friends. We'll start on this side and we'll work across. We'll go across. I won't forget. Start way over there. What do you got?
Oh, hi. Hi, Bill. Hi, Zach. I have a bit of a inside baseball question about the writer's room.
Sure.
So we're in an interesting situation right now in this industry with Zoom rooms and shorter episode orders, harder for lower level writers to break in. Meanwhile, Vice had an article about how showrunners are not really set up to succeed because they haven't been able to get all of the training and mentoring that maybe you probably have had coming up. So I wanted to see what your take was on the writer's room, the state of the writer's room today, and how you've come up in your journey and how that inspired you to be the boss.
It's a cool question. So look, Zoom sucks. You know, my shows all have in-person writers' rooms. Again, I think it's really impossible not to have that connection community when you're doing comedy, and it was a real barrier to entry. You know, luckily they're all back in. We're finding our way through it. There are no rules. You're not penalized if you have kids and they aren't vaccinated and there's anything going on. We go through the trouble of getting tested every day on our writers' rooms just so people feel good about working together. Because I think Scrubs is an example of it, that all the people's lives and the connection, the community, and knowing the actors and actresses really help the show. That's number one. Number two, young writers getting a break. Culturally, it's a weird time that there is a understandably PC culture out there of people, you know, examining things under a microscope in a way that sometimes you can pitch a joke in a writer's room and end up talking about whether or not a joke is appropriate for an entire day, 6 weeks before you ever shoot it and all that stuff. And it's a different environment. I think a bad side of that is it's scared some writers away from hiring younger people because there's a generational change, you know. I, on the other hand, one of the things I preach, it's so valuable to have young men and women that are still like, wow, a TV show working with you, because one of the things you guys can happen in anybody's job is after you do it for a long time, it's easy to become cavalier and forget how cool it is to get to write jokes. The only other job I had for a significant amount of time was painting houses, and I was very bad at it, you know? I'm so grateful to get to do this for a living. So all my shows have young men and women that it's their first job, staff writers. We usually hire from within, which I think is really important, so that there's still a pathway and a channel. It's usually writer's assistants or PAs that come up through writer's assistant and then go on to, I'm so old now that different former PAs and writer's assistants, the PAs on Spin City, the fourth year, anybody know who they were? PAs on Spin City the fourth year were Andy Samberg, Kiva, and Yorma. They're going on. Yeah. So the different PAs on our shows have all gone on to run their own shows now. As far as I was very lucky. There's the video that they show on the ATX thing has sha-la-la at the end of it. That's Gary Goldberg. He was my mentor, okay? And he taught me all this stuff. And there's not enough mentorship anymore. It's not because people are jerks. It's because there's so much product to consume. If you write something good, places in a good way are like, you're really talented. Go. Hey, how do I handle this budget and take care of actors and actresses? It's a nightmare because it's overwhelming. The one cool thing that does exist that I'm still part of, the Writers Guild has something called the Showrunners Training Program. It's awesome, okay? The only prerequisite we're getting in, it's free, is if you have a pilot that is sold or in development, you're allowed to do this thing on Saturdays, which all the major men and women that run shows, produce shows, come in and try to tell these kids of how crazy a job it is. Every year, it's embarrassing because every year they pair me and John Wells, and John Wells is so hyper-organized. He has charts broken down by hours of what they're going to do. The joke that they do is he runs a thing on organized show running, and I run a thing called disorganized chaos. And then Zach, to back that up, tell what was it like some days on Scrubs when I would come to you guys and hand you pages on set?
Well, the biggest mistake I did when I started making real money, I wanted to give back to the crew, so I put in a full old school arcade.
In the hospital. It's true.
Yeah, in the hospital. And for those of you old enough to know, remember there was a great arcade basketball game called NBA Jam. Well, Bill is a basketball freak, and Randall, who you keep hearing about, who is in charge of the money and keeping on schedule on time, and also played Leonard the security guard. said, "You're killing me," because now the entire writer's room is playing NBA jams, and there's no scripts coming out of the writer's room. And so it got to the point some days where the writer's room would get behind, and there would be no script. And so we'd get there on Monday morning, and we'd get a couple pages, and we'd go to set, and we're like, "What the fuck? What is this? What's happening?" And then Bill would come down, harried from finishing a game of NBA jams, and we'd go, "Bill, why are Donald and I standing on the table?" And he'd go, "Oh yeah. So we haven't written that yet, but what's going to happen is," and so it was organized chaos, but it worked. One of the great things about the way we did the show is that Bill would come to set. We'd have a script, and then Bill would come and figure it out with us at the first rehearsal. And that was the most fun part of the show, was we would take what he and his writers had created, and then and of course there was the director there, but Bill was sort of in charge of going, no, we had a lot of great directors, but sometimes he'd be like, "Oh, no, she needs to come in from that door. Don't you see why?" And then he needs to be here. And that was the most fun part, was sort of figuring out the blocking, adding extra jokes, and just cracking up at how we were making it even better. And then he would leave because he gets very bored on set, which is funny because when Bill directs, by the second setup of a scene, he's like, "Oh, I wonder what happens in this scene." He loves to come for rehearsal and maybe watch a little bit and then get the fuck out of there.
Mark, thank you. That was a nice question. So if you ever get a pilot, Showrunner's training program, what do you got, sir?
Yeah, so I know y'all touched base a little bit about live theater earlier. I'm a huge theater person.
We are too.
Awesome. We were lucky enough to see you on Bullets Over Broadway.
Thank you so much for going. Thank you.
Are there any projects coming up that y'all would be interested in working, or have you been interested in possibly writing, directing something for New York, Chicago, LA?
Zach and I are both obsessed with theater.
Yeah.
He would do.
I'm on my way there now just to crank out a whole bunch of Broadway shows. It's my happy place. I wrote a play, by the way. If you want to, it's on Amazon for like $6 or something. It's called All New People, and we did it in New York at the Second Stage Theater for a little while, and then I went and did it in the West End in London, which was a life goal of mine.
You should read it. The best jokes are mine.
Actually,
I wrote nothing.
Actually, in that you wrote fucking nothing. But what's funny is in the play, the lead character tells a joke. That's too dirty. I'm not going to tell here. But he tells a joke, and it's the only thing in the whole play I didn't write. It was just a two-liner joke that I had heard and thought was funny, and the character needed to tell a funny joke. I can't tell you how many people at the stage door would say, "That was hilarious. Thank you so much. That joke that you told." And they would compliment the two sentences I didn't write in the play.
What do you got, Joey? Come back there, too.
Sorry, now I'm all grown. Because I saw All New People, I also saw him in Trust, so now I'm just thinking
Oh,
about
thank
All
you. Yeah, support Second Stage like this young man.
I wanted to ask Bill, this recent television season, there were these articles about, the resurgence of the network sitcom. Abbott Elementary, Grand Crew, American Auto, Ghost. As someone who is, the majority of your work at the moment is on streaming, Apple TV, HBO Max, I'm wondering what your feelings are in response to that, like what the state of the sitcom in the industry right now?
It's all cyclical. By the way, Abbott Elementary is Justin and Pat, two protege guys of mine. They're so talented. And the show's really good. It's really good. Just check it out if you have. Great show, great show.
It's funny, just before you answer, everyone's talking about Abbott Elementary, but my initial answer to that is like, God, I haven't watched a network comedy in so long, which is bizarre. But that's great to hear that there's this resurgence.
It's really good. Well, what's happening is streaming now, as it gets kind of shrunk, is the domain of established writer-producers, because you get to take your show to wherever you want. And so young people are circling back to network TV and making some cool stuff. One thing I can tell you is great shows are great shows. I was around for the Death of the Comedy, Death of the Drama, Death of the Comedy again, Death of the Multicam, which will also be back, Death of the Single Camera Show. It's all bullshit. You know what I mean? And whenever anybody does a good show, 1,000 people copy it. So it makes me excited. It is a bummer that Zach, Modern Family was the last show that was appointment watching for me on network TV. You know, and I used to
Neil
have
was
so
in
many-
that, I think.
So makes me happy. There's a question over here. What do you got, sir, in the hat?
Yeah, on the topic of repeat collaboration.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you guys could talk more about the relationship with Colin Hay, who is obviously an actor and also a songwriter who's appeared in a couple episodes of Scrubs and on the Garden State soundtrack.
Yeah.
One of the things one of the things we try to do in all our shows, all our Zach's movies, we work with the same people. We like them because then they'll temper stuff to your show and then continue on. We all love seeing Colin Hay at Largo. The guy's super talented, and he just kind of entered our world. And
Yeah,
Zach-
around the time of Scrubs starting and then into Garden State. Actually, before I got Scrubs, in like late '90s, there's a place in LA called Largo, which you should all go see. They have comedy, they have music. It's a great little small venue. And someone said, you got to come see the lead singer of Men at Work now does this new kind of thing where he plays his Men at Work songs acoustically, but he also tells the funny stories. He's like a stand-up. If he ever comes here or wherever y'all see, y'all, it's wearing on. Said the Jew from New Jersey. But if you ever get a chance to see him live, he does the best show ever because it's like half anecdotes that have you belly laughing, and then he just goes into the most beautiful song ever. So he was really sort of, when I first moved to LA, kind of having a moment, definitely in the LA scene, as as this new one-man band. And Bill was hip to it, and Krista, who was in charge of a lot of our music, was hip to it. And so, and he had also acted, I think he was on the Larry Sanders Show. Is that how you knew he could act? Because then Bill said, oh, why don't we put him in an episode? And that's how that happened.
But we love doing stuff like that. We stay friends that keep repeating people over and over. And if you do a solid for someone, there's a random story on that. My wife was one of the first people because her sister-in-law, Leona Ness, who wrote Leave Your Boyfriends Behind and Charm Attack and all these songs, was on the Cougar Town sound. It was from London. And so Krista heard a song called Lego House from a young guy, Ed Sheeran, who, by the way, we put one of his songs on Cougar Town before he even had a record deal. And then this is why it pays off if you have the chance to do that. We were at a restaurant in California, and this odd red-haired guy walked up, and he said, I lived on someone's couch, and I randomly got a $7,000 check from Cougar Town. He wanted to thank us. But the reason you do this, I don't know if everybody here knows, my daughter is a singer-songwriter. Her first guitar is from Ed Sheeran. Has a note on the back that says "Play Me," and he is single-handed. The upside is he is one of her most important mentors in teaching her how to be a singer-songwriter. The downside is that she now has 20 tattoos. All right.
And I don't even know if you know this, but Leona Ness, who is Bill's sister-in-law, in this Bring It All Full Circle, has a song in my new film, A Good Person.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And a new album out.
We haven't done this side. How about you, ma'am, right there with your hand up? Yeah.
I have a two-part question. One, did anything ever happen with the Scrubs spec script that you wrote and got drove over? And two, where'd you guys go to dinner?
You're adorable. We went to Sammy's.
No, you skipped over the
I was starting with two. Sammy's, Italian.
It's really good.
Very good. I recommend it. Chicken parm. The Scrub spec script. I think like a joke or two may have ended up in other episodes, but it died.
It was probably very good. I was not. You guys, we always talked that Zach was.
It
a
was
kid.
definitely. It
Well,
was.
wait, we always talked that you were a kid. How old were you when you got Scrubs?
I was. It was 2001, and I'm 47. What's the math?
21, 20, 26. Right? So just so you guys know,
26.
we act like they were kids. They were kids. I was only 29. You know what I mean?
No, you
So
weren't.
30. Yeah, Scrubs. I wrote Scrubs when I was 29.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was 30. Yeah. And so I wasn't ready to have other people. Takes you a while.
I
wasn't
remember
ready
you
to have
saying it
other
was
people.
maudlin, which was true. That's one of the notes you gave me was you said it was maudlin, and it was a very dark thing. 'Cause one thing in the Venn diagram of our case, they're mostly overlapped, but I definitely go darker because I have issues. But Bill's pretty damn healthy in his brain, and I'm not. But No, I mean the things I write on my own skew darker, and I think one of the things, if I were to read it today, I'd probably be humiliated. But I think one of the things he was commenting on was there's some good writing in here in so many words, but this is way too dark for an episode of a comedy.
I mean, you can't have any of the main characters die.
I killed off the whole cast.
Any questions in the middle? I know we're tight on time. Anybody in here? Because I've skipped the middle. Yeah, what do you got?
Just kind of going off the writer's room question earlier, what do you look for when you're putting together a room, like as a whole, like as an individual writer, but then again as like building the whole room out?
I'll tell you what's really interesting. It's changed so much. I'm so old. I'm not. I don't think I'm old. I look in the mirror, I see the same person, but maybe I'm not. So, but when I started, the first sitcoms I was on, and they were lovely people, so there's no judgment here, would be, the first staff I was on was 8 white guys and 1 woman. It just was the world, you know what I mean, of TV writing. It was, and now it is, you know, in a cool way, it started evolving quickly. Spin City would have been disingenuous, you know, if it wasn't like that. Now the amazing thing is, you know, writers' rooms are a melting pot of voices and perspectives, and to me, I find that super exciting. You know, and part of the subtext of the show Bad Monkey is about multi-generational Cuban families in Miami. It's a huge subculture. It's a bunch of Cuban writers. Well, hard to believe. I don't know a lot about that personally. But having a bunch of Cuban writers on the show that can then speak to these stories the same way we all get excited about stories that we hear on TV when they're not something we're familiar with. It's awesome. So I try personally to put together just a whole bunch of different voices and comedic sensibilities. The one thing I try to stick to, which you all should do if you can, is a no asshole policy, which is you know, you should be doing these things with people that you would want to be with anyway. Someone always sneaks through, by the way. But you should be doing these things with people that you care about and want to be with anyways. But I try to make it a kind of big, eclectic group.
That's an important thing also, is that it's a very small community, believe it or not, relatively speaking. And the no asshole policy, and nowadays I've gotten to a point, and Bill is certainly at this point, where you don't hire someone in a significant role as actor or writer without asking everyone about them. Because we've all had experiences where we didn't do that, and there's an asshole ruining it for everybody, and it's poison. And so now and so your behavior, if you happen to be the asshole, everyone finds out pretty darn quickly. And then the people just fall into the category of and I had calls, hey, how's it to work with so and so? And I go, oh my God, don't do it. Are you crazy? And that person might not even know that they're losing jobs because they're a prick, but they are.
It really, by the way, it means behave well when you get in the door.
It really just comes down to being a kind, normal human being.
There's 2 things that happen once you reach certain levels. I'll tell you, both are funny. Behave well when you get in the door. Here's one that was true. I went to a wedding. Somebody came up and they said, I was a PA on Spin City, and I knew you back then. I don't know if you remember me. And I'm like, I did. And I'm like, was I hope I was a good guy. And he said, yeah, I mean, you had peroxide blonde hair and you were hungover a lot. I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. And I go, what are you doing now? He goes, oh, I'm the president of Nickelodeon.
Yeah, that sums it up better than I could have.
And then the other world is that you live in a world, really, by the way, everybody calls up for recommendations. We have something called the recommend, not recommend. So if you write on my show and you're awesome to be around, or you're a crew member and you're awesome to be around, or an actor, I will go on for 20 minutes about you. And if someone calls up someone that was tough or didn't behave well, I'll go, oh, he's a great writer. You should definitely read his stuff and meet him.
Oh, really? I'm harsher than that.
No, there's a code for us in the show running things, because also it's acknowledged it's a narcissistic business. I've got an ego. There's lots of men and women that can do great with one person and not with another, you know?
Oh, when people call me, they're like, hey, how is so-and-so? Cool? Just okay? Or should I call you? Meaning, like, don't put it in print.
Yeah. It's probably smart.
And I just had one last week, like, let's talk on the phone.
Hey, we got like 2 more minutes, so I always feel guilty when people are so nice enough to come and they have questions. Is there anybody that had a question that they're dying to get out, or something that they have to like get out, or they're gonna be?
It's imperative. You have to get it out.
No, that's been emphatic hand right there. You yes.
It's actually funny that you said imperative because my last name's Imperator. But anyway, I want to know a little bit about the Clone High reboot.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely loved it as much as I loved Scrubs when I was younger. I'm curious to know, now that there's been some time that's passed since the original, is there any new characters that have since become historical figures since the original that you would like?
I won't do too many spoilers, okay? But this is why I want everybody here to be empathetic to people. You know, when we live in a time now that we're consuming media that was sometimes generated 20 years ago, 30, and the world's changing so fast, right? So fast. I mean, it's like telling your kids, my kids are still incredulous that I didn't have a cell phone. The point is, this is going to get me on the internet. I'm going for it anyways. All right. So, Clone High has changed. Phil and Chris are so rock star talented and so good, man. But it's changed because when we're like, let's reboot it, we were so excited. And then we went, hey, is Gandhi played by a white guy and is Cleopatra played by my wife? You know, because back then when we made that cartoon and we were young, we were like, oh, let's make this with our friends. We'll just do all the voices and their historical figures. It's great. So, although Gandhi is still in it, Cleopatra's still in it. They are now played by, as they should be, you know, an Indian actor and an appropriate.
Are you trying to figure out what nationality?
No, because it's Egyptian, but
because I don't know the answer.
No, I do. This is the issue.
Does anyone know?
It's Egypt, but depending on what historical text you read, Cleopatra, I mean, has a lot of. So we've been bouncing around with different actresses.
Bill
So there's
Lawrence
also-
doesn't know Cleopatra. Donald Faison announces Scrubs reboot. Bill Lawrence doesn't know nationality of Cleopatra.
My favorite new character though is Frida Kahlo. So look for her. She's very fun. All right. Anybody else? We'll do a last one. What do
Last
you got?
question. Here we go.
What do you got?
Since we've been talking about your wife a lot,
Yeah.
and this is like a best friend panel, I just wanted to see if you could shed light on working with your best friend on so many different projects, and then kind of how her characters are based on her, but they're also really mean.
You should videotape that for Krista.
I gotta remember that question verbatim.
Oh my God! I wish I had that on video.
Look, and by the way, Zach works.
She's very scary.
Zach was so cool because he put my wife in his movie, and then she had by the way, nightmare of her life. She dropped a picture that hit her face and gave her stitches and knocked a tooth out, and it was the day before she was supposed to shoot, so she couldn't actually be in your movie.
I know, it's horrible.
But she was so happy, which she shouldn't be happy. Apparently, was that scene cut?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, don't tell her.
But by the way, well, it was cut down. But Bill goes. Bill, when I hired Krista, I said, I just want to be totally upfront with you because I love you and I don't want you to ever be mad at me. This scene is very important to me, but because it doesn't drive any plot forward, of course, in the cutting room, there's a chance it could go. And then Krista she goes, I don't care, I just want to work with you, I'm going to work with Morgan Freeman, who cares? She gets this injury, and Bill, to comfort her, goes, don't worry, that scene's definitely not going to be in the movie.
So, I love working with my wife. She treats me with so much respect. I mean, I'm a married man of 22 years that gets to occasionally tell his wife what to say and what to wear. It's very weird. It's not like that at home. And I tell everybody, my wife is exactly like the character she plays in real life, only slightly meaner. We gotta go, you guys. We gotta be.